Good evening. It's been a while for the Alan Osborne show. It's August 28th. And I've been quiet, and people have asked me why, and they've wanted me to start doing my show again. And, I had a lot of different reasons, had some health stuff to take care of. Plus, I just wondered if the show was making a difference to anybody. Do you care about receiving the truth? I mean, because we're going to have to get, as citizens, we're going to have to get serious about this country, about admitting what's broke, how to fix it. Because pretending that stuff's not happening, it is, ain't fixing anything, is it? This country ain't getting better right now, and I hope everybody is scared of what they see the government not doing. We seem to have a two-tiered legal system for the connected and the unconnected that goes all the way up to the presidential office and their kids and everywhere else. It should be a no-brainer that if somebody has the title illegal, that's what it means they're breaking the law. But there seems to be a standard of what laws can be broken, and prosecution, well, you know, a prosecutor's authority and discretion to do what they want sometimes is abused in this country. And there ain't nothing we can do about it until we have people up there that realize that maybe we don't need more laws, maybe we need less laws, but the laws we have should be the same for everybody, huh? Anyway, welcome back to the Alan Osborne Show. If you've missed your dose of brutal truth, then we'll try to crank it back up again. If you're like me, you're frustrated. This is a local show. You're frustrated with what you see on the news, but it's what you don't see, what's going on in your area. We got some serious issues, and the morons we have running this place still don't get it. They don't know how to stop what they're doing. Our infrastructure's overloaded, and they're still covering up their own wrongdoings. A lot of things that have happened in the last year or two that we've waited for somebody to do something, the state attorney, the sheriff, or somebody has, and even the governor took forever. I'm not sure. We think Brad Drake is appointed, but nobody seems to care about anything going wrong in the county as far as the legal system. So I'm going to take a different approach, and we're going to go back to the ethics board because maybe somebody didn't choose to prosecute over some of the issues that's come up, but ethically, weren't they wrong as politicians? Because do we really think the BCC is going to punish itself? How about the sheriff or any other elected position? Are they going to turn around and look in the mirror other than the 4-year mark and say, I've done wrong? Do we really think that they're going to punish themselves or find themselves guilty of anything? Even through the purchase card thing, they said they did nothing wrong. Sexual lawsuits. And we got a new administrator, and I wrote him. And Donna Johns told him to answer. Find out some answers. And what did he do? Nothing. Silence. Mr. Robertson, Quinn Robertson, our new administrator, see if he'll write you about a real issue. And supposedly he's already hired Tony Corman that he promised somebody before he even got the job. Quinn, isn't that an ethics violation? And you hired Corman, who didn't meet the minimum education requirements, I'm sure, for that job. We just can't learn, can we? So without a further ado, people have been waiting. So what I decided was take all this stuff back to the ethics commission and see what's going on, because they can tell the governor to take action without the state attorney. Because a lot of things are violations of ethics, but it doesn't mean the local attorney's office is going to prosecute them. And the sheriff's related to Clay, buddies with Scott and everybody else. You think he's going to do anything to these people? Half of them were ex-deputies that may or may not have worked for him at different times. I think they all did. So we got a shit show here, as normal on the Alan Osborne Show. So let me read you this complaint. Ethics complaint, written, signed, and filed today. And you might not understand this, but I understand that Trey Nick is going to run for office again. He's told everybody. And I don't know if you commissioners and some of you officials that have certain jobs, like the county attorney, but you're ethically able to be investigated for 5 years from things that you do. So I sat down and wrote some things, and this complaint's for you, Trey. I'd like to thank you and Scott for ignoring everything I ever did. It costed me a lot of money, and costing a lot of people a lot of grief. Cost the taxpayers a lot of money with some of that, in my opinion. So, in my opinion, personally, this is what I believe the situation to be. And I've asked for the ethics board if they think that this is meets the standard legal standards to be investigated. I want them to investigate us and have them tell us what happened. So without that, a complaint against Frank A. Nick III, Trey Nick. I believe the 4 violations listed here fall into different parts of the sections of the Code of Ethics for Public Officers and Employees found in Chapter 112, Part 3 of the Florida Statutes. Foremost, the goals of the code are to promote public interest and maintain the respect of people for government. The code is also intended to ensure that public officials conduct themselves independently and impartially, not using their offices for private gain other than compensation provided by law. Anyway, so that's a problem, isn't it? So without ado, we're going to go on. There's a whole lot more in here. In Chapter 3 is the ethics laws. Basically, I believe there's been violations of number 1, prohibited actions. Number 3, misuse of public position and by public officers and employees, and abuse of a public position. I believe all those have happened. I believe there's been voting conflicts of interest. And so I just wrote down what I think the violations are. And they are as follows. Violation number 1. Trey Nick broke the first paragraph of Chapter 3, in my opinion, when he solicited and openly promised jobs to his longtime friend and former commissioner, Scott Brown, during his election campaign. Nick openly told people he'd promised the job to Scott if elected and used that influence in the promise of bringing Scott Brandon back into Walton government. Scott openly told people they would also bring Gary Madison on board to Nick's office, where no such position had ever existed. Both Madison and Brandon had left the county on less than good terms. Madison resigned from HR after being arrested, and an investigation was dismissed that was ongoing when he resigned. Brandon was never hired as a regular county employee, but would have that overlooked at Nick and Atkinson would never advise against it because they were his buds. And Clay Atkinson, the acting county attorney, was also Scott's personal attorney, so I'm sure he wasn't going to tell Nick he can't do that. Nick would go on to help Brandon and Madison have new jobs created for them when Nick realized he would have to leave office because of redistricting. Brandon and Madison were political positions that were direct hired by the office Nick held and skipped the normal hiring process. They would later internally compete for jobs that Madison created for himself and Brandon to transition to as Nick's term expired. They were allowed to apply as internal candidates for jobs advertised internally only. Pardon me. For only 1 week that Madison and Brandon were qualified for by design. The jobs were written for them. They were advertised internally. And Madison and Brandon had not come back to the county through a regular process. They weren't real internal candidates. This was all to keep Brandon as an insider who was paid to be in county government. As Nick had promised to so many on the campaign trail he would do. In fact, Brandon's erratic writing style, as demonstrated in the attachments, was far from what is required of an aide or legislative liaison to state government. Madison was a day 1 requirement fulfilled, just as Nick had promised Brandon, because Brandon had no intent to be in the name. Come on, people. He wasn't going to aid anybody but himself and his friends. This was the follow-through and a violation of the statute by a promise of future employment and the use of position to create jobs and violate normal HR procedures for special favor. For Madison and Brandon being executed under the guise of a special report that was authored by Madison himself. Brandon had received multiple ethics violations while in office, and ironically, suddenly was the most qualified person, as Madison wrote it, to internally apply to become the county's legislative liaison. He would be the county's voice with the lawmakers. The ex-commissioner who couldn't follow the law when he was in office would become the county's liaison on legislative issues. Nick even had ads published against him in the local paper and in social media that asked why he had promised these jobs before he was elected. He didn't respond. Even though Brannon himself, as Nick's future aide and advisor, knew Nick would violate the law if he hired Brannon and Madison as promised, they proceeded anyway and violated the statute. Madison was hired as an operations director in front of the BCC with no job description and no advertisement, and Nick being the third vote to direct hire him when this issue came up. Nick used his position by vote where he was conflicted to give Madison the authority he would use to author a report that included a new job for Madison and to create an unaccountable job for Scott Brannon that only Brannon would be considered for. Nick would break all the rules to keep the campaign support he had promised jobs and influence for. Indeed, Nick was the chairman when Madison's job was created and the deciding vote on the direct hire of him. It was also done with the redistricting revealed Nick would have to leave office at the next term. Violation number 2, an internal audit conducted by the Walton County Clerk of Court's office. Nick had violated county policies more than 100 times in a 28-month period. Auditors found Nick to have committed 88 purchase card discrepancies and failed to turn in travel vouchers 52 times between October 1st, 2018 and January 31st of this year. A substantial violation was noted, such as Nick paying $7,000 for him and his aide, Scott Brannon, to attend the 2020 National Association of Counties Conference. Nick's spending on that trip was quoted as was inconsistent compared to the other commissioners, the auditor said. And he goes on to 4 more parts. I don't want this show to get too long because I'm going to post the document on social media. That's violation number 2. Violation number 3, misuse of his position to gain influence for sexual favors or intimidation over subordinate county employees against county policies. The below experts are from the case with the Maxwell. According to the accounts told to me, DH stated to these people that Commissioner Nick had been sleeping with her. The Assistant Acting County Administrator, initials DH, and a District 5 Commissioner employee, initials SH, as well as involving key staff to deal with these unethical situations, well detailed in the lawsuit. In fact, Commissioner Nick's sexual escapades may have led to DH failing to name Nick personally. She has filed a wrongful termination suit against the BCC, but because this might be exposed, Nick was left out of it. Nick openly stated at DH's termination hearing that his own video, quote, "Boys, you know what we have to do," and they voted to terminate her. Afterwards, they embraced, photos attached, which was strange for a fire. While Nick voted to terminate an employee he was sleeping with over a $500 dispute, he had been directly responsible for her performance reviews and promotions while their affair occurred. A blatant abuse of position in this author's opinion. Nick's other sexual escapades with Commissioner Anderson's office workers are well documented in the Maxwell file. The state attorney never took action on the purchase card violations or investigated any of these violations discussed here, but those acts are still an abuse of policy and unethical no matter if action by the state attorney's office and position. They must be dealt with by the Ethics Commission. This is my opinion. For the good of order and to save the taxpayer from future possible lawsuits over unethical conduct. Below are included some of the direct quotes from the lawsuit and settlement. Number 4, use of position to help break the law and the purposeful non-enforcement of code and ordinance, helping Clay Atkinson and Scott Brannon with Sandestin. When Sidney Noyes was resigning as the Walton County attorney, a key issue before the BCC was the compliance of Sandestin with the regional development order. The DRI fell within Nick's district. Dr. Henry Harper had determined the county and Sandestin developer were failing to meet the required standards as adopted by law and ordinance. This was a problem for Clay Atkinson and Scott Brannon. Brannon was linked to Sandestin. I have emails to prove it, because he had he had defended its compliance as a commissioner. Sorry, my glasses are hard to read. Nick should have filed an 8B and not voted on this because of his relationship with Atkinson and Atkinson with Brandon, Nick's aide, but instead actually brought Clay Atkinson to the meeting, who was an unannounced addition to the published schedule. Atkinson would be involved in the Madison and Brandon hires by his temporary position as the BCC advisor and acting attorney by default. When Dr. Harper's report was adopted by the BCC, it was Brandon, as Nick's aide, who told people that Alan Osborne was right about Sandestin's noncompliance. Nick, who was close friends with Atkinson and Brandon, knew Clay was conflicted on Sandestin along with Brandon, and Atkinson had been Brandon's lawyer pick at the TDC when Brandon was in office. Indeed, a few years earlier, then County Attorney Mark Davis had terminated Atkinson because he had been improperly hired by Brandon to work on Sandestin for the county. He was conflicted. Once again, because of Nick, Clay would be hired into a position his firm was conflicted with, and he admitted when he addressed the commission prior to becoming the intern county employee. Yet Nick, as commissioner and as chairman, took advice on Sandestin from Atkinson at the expense of Osborne and other property owners within the county and Sandestin DRI. Clay would advise the county on all Sandestin issues at both the planning board and the BCC adoption, despite his declared confidence. Clay was also Scott Brandon's personal attorney on his former ethics complaints. In a 13-minute statement, video available from Alan Osborne in a public meeting on problems with the county, Nick openly admitted that Osborne wasn't wrong on his statements on lies and noncompliance with the DRI laws and ordinance. But Nick abused his position of authority and responsibility and failed to enforce the law and turned a blind eye to it until he left office. Despite the public admissions at that meeting and the violations of law were occurring in his district. The conclusion. It is my sincerest hope that the commission will investigate those possible violations of laws and ethics. The citizens have nobody other than the governor at the recommendation of this board to right politically motivated wrongs and misbehavior in elected positions. The state attorney's office either refuses to investigate accusations such as these and prosecute them, or it may lack the authority. It was stated to limit the initial submission to the commission, so I will wait to submit my numerous videos and attachments that support these accusations, along with a key witness list who can corroborate the accusations within my complaint. These kinds of insider violations cost the taxpayers millions in personal lawsuits and excessive taxes to cover up development violations that ordinary citizens simply don't get protection from. These kinds of ethical violations should probably be the subject of a full county audit by the assigned investigator from the governor or AG office. These allegations are made with the most possible information available to a normal citizen. We, the citizens, simply don't have the authority to independently interview witnesses or the resources to obtain the sworn deposition related to the investigations and what may be available to the authority of the Ethics Commission. If any of the above accusations are found to be true and correct, it is a serious breach of trust with the public on what already seems to be a two-tiered system from the citizens' perspective. Laws for the normal people, and then laws and policy for the connected and elected. Please investigate these allegations and restore our faith in government. Alan Osborne. In God we trust. All others pay cash. I hope it's been a good first show. More to follow, more complaints. And I'll see you next time on the Alan Osborne Show. You know why? Because you can't make this shit up. See you next time.